So I had someone ask me today, how am I closing all these deals today? Right? That's what they were asking me. How did you close all these deals today? And my answer was as follows. I'm going to break it down into three parts so you know exactly what to do in life, in your job, in sales, period. Three things. The first is that remember you can only control what you do, not the result of that doing. You can only control what you do, not the result of that doing. So you can control what you do, but also your disposition. And the way you can control your disposition or your attitude is by establishing habits, good routines. Because you may not be this person that you may see on the internet that says don't do any morning routines, they're not necessary, just get up and go straight to work. Maybe you can do that. Maybe you're a small minority of a person that can actually do that. But it's very likely that you're not Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or these individuals at the very top of the top that a lot of people reference and they feel insignificant in comparison to those people, and that's not a fair comparison. And you can go down the list: Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa on the opposite spectrum. So success in different forms. So don't compare yourself to other people. They can be used as an example, and you could try to model their activities or their life in specific ways as far as how they're using principles. But remember that we are creatures of habit. So the first thing that you need to do is create a routine, just like you brush your teeth every morning, just like you put a shirt on every morning, just like you um, go through your nightly routine before you go to sleep. You do all these things, but you never think, what habits do I have to establish in order to put myself in the right state of mind and state of being so that I could perform at my very best, or at least try to perform at my very best. So for me, that's a couple of different things. Number one, it's I wake up in the morning, and the first thing that I do, almost 100% of the time, I mean, I will look at my phone to find out, okay, what's going on with work, what do I, because it helps me kind of wake my brain up. But you don't have to do that. But as far as the habits are concerned, the first thing that I do is record a voice memo. Now I do things in different orders sometimes depending on how I'm feeling. So I'll take a shower. That's one of the first things I do, and I'll end with cold water to kind of boost my adrenaline to wake myself up. So I'll take a shower. I'll end with cold water. I don't do cold showers. I'll take a normal, nice shower with some nice and hot water, and I'll enjoy it. And then at the end, for about a minute, I'll turn it ice cold, and then I'll just wake myself up with the ice cold water. So it's not as crazy as you think it is, but that'll actually energize me. I'll make my tea, my green tea, and then I will do these next three things. I will meditate, write a journal, a quick journal, and I will record a voice memo. So those are the four things that I do every morning: shower and with cold water, voice memo, journal, and meditation. Okay, those are the things that I do, and that typically sets the tone for my day. And I could tell you specifically how I do these things, and maybe I'll do it right now. So what I do with the actual voice memo itself is I will try to think of some lessons that I can impart on myself. It's almost like you're speaking to yourself. You're not talking about what you can do is you could start talking about specifically about how yesterday went very quickly. You want to summarize things very quickly because you also want to be able to etch in your brain what it is that I did yesterday and how is that linked to maybe how I'm feeling right now and what does the day ahead look. So you want to basically do those things very quickly. You may not want to. You may just want to talk about principles or concepts or something you learned or a dream that you had. All of that is fair game. Sometimes my memos are 5 minutes long. Sometimes they're 15, 20 minutes long, depending on the memo, depending on how talkative I am that morning, because you're not going to be the same every time. But you also want to rev that engine. You want to rev that speaking and that thinking engine. And you also want to make sure that whatever you're talking about in your memo at a certain point is actually substantial, and it's more substantial than not, which means a higher percentage of the memo is substantial over the mundane daily type of tasks that you're talking about as far as what you need to do for the day. These are the things that you talk about if you have nothing to talk about, but then eventually you have to get to the point. And eventually you will, right? You're going to think about something, that you're doing, something that you learned, something that you can implement, an idea that you had, a dream that's linked to something else. You need to be able to take these different ideas and concepts and then be able to link them together in such a way where they make sense to you. And then what I'll do is I will always end it with gratitude. That's something that I try to pepper into or sprinkle into everything that I do. Gratitude. That's very important. So gratitude. Then I will sit down and I will meditate for about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, somewhere around there. And it's basically Vipassana meditation. So mindfulness meditation, where I basically clear my mind. I think about something, and then once I catch myself thinking, I just return to the present moment. I just try to feel my body and listen to the sounds and feel my breath. And I do that. And sometimes what can happen in that process is that a thought might arise or a phrase might arise or something might arise. And then what I'll do is I'll put it to the side. I'll continue to focus on my meditation. And then when I get out of my meditation, I'll write a journal. Now, those three things that I mentioned, the journaling, the meditation, and the memo, they can actually come in any order, which means you also have to tune into yourself and find out if you're at a point right now where you can record a memo. Sometimes I'll record a memo for the first couple of seconds and I'm like, I can't do this right now. I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'm in a more of a thinking mood or writing mood or a meditative mood. If my mind is not, if I'm not getting to the point where I'm thinking, one of the best things that I can do is after I shower and wake myself up, meditate. Because meditation, you're going to find that you can't stay focused anyway on meditation. It's very rare that you're going to be able to sit there and just focus on your senses for 15 minutes. That's going to be very rare. Eventually, there's going to be some thought that arises. So once you come out of that session, then you could start journaling and maybe start a voice memo. So I'll write a journal. Sometimes it'll be short. Sometimes it'll be a bit long. Sometimes I'm in the mood to write a lot. Sometimes I'm in the mood to just write a quick poem or something like that. And the poem doesn't have to rhyme necessarily. It could just be verses. And that for me really centers me, because it allows me to get things out there, to integrate them simultaneously, and then to get myself energized with the shower, focus with the meditation, expel all of the thoughts that I have with the memo and the journal, and make sure all those ideas are kind of organized more or less. And now I'm kind of good to go as far as, doing my meetings. So that's what I'll do. And that might take anywhere, like I said, from 30 minutes to 45 minutes collectively all together. So it's not something that should take a long time. Just blast it out, right? Just bang it out. You take a shower, 5 or 10 minutes, voice memo, 5 or 10 minutes, meditation, 15 minutes, journal, 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, it's going to end up being around 45 minutes roughly. So set that time aside, do that every day to the best of your ability. You may miss some days, you may miss certain things on certain days, but try to keep that as consistent as possible. Now that's going to basically prime you for the rest of your day. And by the way, during meditation, I'm also saying thank you over and over again. And whenever I can remember to bring gratitude into the picture, that's what I do. Now, all of that being said, the second thing that I do, because that's also going to put me in a positive state of mind and state of being. So that attitude, that disposition. Aside from that, the doing, right? The actual work itself, focus on what you are doing and do it well. So practice, learn, educate yourself, execute, study, think, practice, get feedback, do all of that stuff. Implement it in your meetings live. Make sure that you're doing this on a daily basis, and just know that if you're not getting the result, then you may have to make some modification. Always make sure that you're taking a lesson from everything that you're doing. Every single day, you should have one lesson that you're learning, or something that you remind yourself of. So it's maybe something that you learned in the past, but it's a reminder for you to make sure that you don't forget what you had learned and bring it back into the present and be able to implement it. So focus on the inputs, and then over time, as you continue doing the right things and making modifications and getting the feedback and making modifications, you will see that you're more reliably able to produce the outputs through your actions, but you cannot actively control the outputs. So you can do everything perfectly, but if that prospect, as an example, will just never buy and you can't control that, forget it. You can do everything to a T perfect and he won't buy. That's okay. You did everything the right way. You can't control what he does, so you can't be upset with yourself. You can listen. You could be a bit upset with yourself if you didn't practice, if you didn't really care, if you didn't really try, if you weren't thinking properly, if you didn't answer his questions properly. don't be upset if you do those things. Just make a note of it and make sure that you make those corrections in the future. But focus on specifically what your inputs are, what actions that you take, and then the outcomes as a result will will manifest through the actions that you're taking. They don't just manifest because you're thinking about them, but you get my point. So that's the second thing. So focus on the actions. And the third element to this entire equation was the follow-up sequence. And when I say follow-up sequence, I mean sometimes you're going to be doing things. And in the specific case of sales, sometimes the prospects close or don't close. And there's a line of thinking out there that says burn the bridges. You can do that. And in many cases, you should be able to make the distinction if this person is going to be a solid follow-up or if they're just not going to close. And if they're not, then you do everything that you can to possibly close them. If they don't close, they don't close. It's okay. But the people that may close that are right there on the fence and you feel like a little bit of resistance and you can't overcome that resistance or those objections because maybe you didn't address it earlier in discovery, or you just are at the point where you feel like there's going to be tension and you're going to lose rapport and credibility by putting too much pressure, then take a step back, a couple of steps back, like I mentioned yesterday, and then put them in your pipeline. And a lot of your closes are going to be from your actual pipeline, from the follow-ups. Remember, fortunes are in the follow-ups. Now, how that applies to life in general is just knowing that sometimes the activities that you're doing, you're going to be doing everything the right way or the right way to the best of your ability, and these things are going to come back around to you. Now I can't think of any examples, but remember, when they come back around, you put yourself in a better position to address that problem if it arose, because the first time you did everything that you could to actually solve it. So if you can get it solved, or if it's put on the back burner, if the deadline in the future, well, now when you meet it again, you've done a lot of the legwork, right? You've done a lot of the front end work the first time around, so it's going to be a lot easier to solve the second time around. So those are the three things to actually focus on. And so I hope that was helpful. I'm not sure how I exactly started this video, but I think those are definitely the 3 points that I wanted to mention as far as controlling what you do, as far as your routine, your habits, to make sure that you put yourself in the right state. You do the right things, you take the right actions, and you make sure that even though you've taken the right actions, and it's easier to take the right actions if you prime yourself properly. And then the third thing is, after you take the right actions, if you don't get the outcome, if you can't solve the problem, when it comes back around, or you're following up on it, or you're continuing that sequence, then it's a lot easier to solve it because you did the best that you could with the actual inputs, with the actual actions that you took prior to that. So those are the things that I told this person when they asked me, "Oh, how did you do this?" It's not a magical thing. I'm not a special person. You can do it as well, as long as you do, as long as you take the necessary actions. Because even a state of being is, in a sense, a state of doing. It's doing, non-doing, as they say in the Tao. So without getting too far off course now, I hope that was helpful. And that's it for me for tonight. So I'll see you soon.